Hello and welcome back to 321 Adam. I'm your host Adam. In this episode we're going to talk about the 6 Rocky films and the 2 Creed films, as well as the 3rd Creed film that rumors have been swirling about coming out. So about these 8 films, we're going to talk about my personal opinion, and we're going to rank them from the bottom all the way to the top. So without further ado, we'll get right into the last one. Of course, there is 8 spots, so number 8, we start with Rocky 2. And why Rocky 2? A lot of people tell me Rocky 2 is the film that ties it all together from the original one that won all their awards. But for me, Rocky 2, it was predictable. I mean, who would make a sequel and not have the main character finally overcome the obstacle, the conflict? So, for me, Rocky 2, it was predictable. I also didn't like the fact that Adrian was trying to get Rocky not to box. I mean, the movie's about boxing. The movie's about overcoming obstacles. I mean, you watch the trailer, you read your information, you know, okay, Rocky's fighting at the end of the movie. So what is this drag-on period of Adrian going, Dr. Sid shouldn't fight anymore, and Rocky kind of just giving in because Rocky loves Adrian? I like the parts where he proposes in the zoo, and it's silly, ridiculous, he does commercials. Like, it's not a bad movie by any means. Of course, I love the Rocky films, so I'm a little biased. But to me, Rocky 2 was predictable. You knew where it was going, you knew what was going to happen. They have the coma scenes with Adrian, and Mickey has to hype him up in the hospital chapel. It was a good film. It's just predictable. Which gives us to number 7. And number 7, also an earlier film, but earlier in the Creed saga, it's Creed 1. Creed 1, it was a hard sell. I really believe that for Stallone. I think it was a hard sell to start these next set of films. And at the time, they didn't know it was going to be a second and perhaps even a third. Stallone kind of was holding on to the fact he made Rocky Balboa or Rocky 6, 16 years after Rocky 5. So for Creed 1, a lot of people had a lot of work to try to sell this to MGM, to sell it to Stallone, because Stallone would have been a big part of this film. To me, it was a hard sell, and it had to be a big build-up for it to really gain steam and to really be interesting. Like my father tells me, they damaged Apollo Creed's legacy, and they even talk about that too in the film when they have the little PTI segment. It's interesting, it really is, and but it's realistic though, and that's the thing. Why Creed 1, to me, is ahead of Rocky 2, because it was unpredictable but realistic. And a lot of the later Rocky films kind of get away from realistic. So that's where we get for Creed 1. Creed 1 to me is number 7 on this 8-down count list. Rocky 5 is the next one, number 6. Rocky 5. Rocky 5. It bombed. Let's be honest, it bombed. Again, doesn't mean it's a bad film, but there was a lot of comedic parts to this, and it wasn't trying to be comedic with George Washington Duke and Tommy Gunn. And once again, a kind of a pushback to Rocky 2 and even previous films about Rocky not wanting to fight anymore, and then he doesn't. But then he fights in the street, and then we hear later rumors about Stallone wanting to kill off the Rocky character. It was a disaster film. Rocky 5 could have went so many different directions. They make Rocky have to be like a bad father and interesting, and we in the previous films we don't see Rocky ever being a bad father. We always see him being a good father figure in Rocky 3, and Rocky 4, the son wasn't really involved in the film, but it kind of seems like he's a bad father in this film, and that to me that diminished a lot. That kind of hurts the character of Rocky. It shows he's human, which I'm a fan of them humanizing the character. But Rocky 5, he doesn't box, he fights on the street, and he trains this guy off the street, just literally a guy off the street. We don't know who he is, he doesn't know who he is, and he kind of takes a chance on a no-name guy and doesn't even know who he is, doesn't know anything about him, and it comes back and it kind of gets the best of him there at the end. As we continue the countdown, we go on to Rocky 1. Rocky 1 was a great film. It won all those awards. Slow. It's a slow film. It feels like a 70s film when you watch it. When you watch other films in that era, you can tell it's a 70s film. At least to me, at least. But to me, Rocky 1 was a great film. again, it had to be a slow build up, kind of like Creed 1. Had to be a slow build up, but a little more, than I think Creed 1 for me. I don't like, they made Paulie out to be like he was an abusive brother. Not a fan. Not a fan. But it shows that Rocky went through so many obstacles to get his one shot. Out of nowhere. One in a million type of shot. It was a great film. Great film. Just not a personal favorite. Not one that I go back and I watch a lot. Which is ironic because Rocky 5 is a film that I kind of will watch snippets here and there at random times. And Rocky 1 is kind of one of those films I watch. You watch it in its entirety. You don't really watch the snippets like Rocky 5 type film. As we continue on, number 4, Rocky Balboa, or Rocky 6, which doesn't really get coined a lot, but Rocky Balboa. A lot of people expected it to bomb. Stallone spent years and years writing the scripts. It was in his Fly magazine, which I do have, guys. He wrote it for years and years and years, trying to come up with an idea. And another one was a hard sell. This one, Stallone was fully behind. It was a hard sell to get this one to go, and it was the best you were going to do. The best you were going to do. But it really, I think them kind of writing out the Adrian character, it really showed what it's like for a spouse, losing your spouse. And I really believe that it was a movie that really did well, in my opinion. You have them fight, it's a little hoaxy. It's like they said, a glorified sparring match, but then they make them kind of go toe-to-toe with this young champion boxer, and yeah, a little much. And for me, when I first saw this film, I was only 11 years old. I go, are they going to kill Rocky off now in this one? Is that why Stallone wants to make another one? And they didn't, and I'm glad they didn't, because the Creed films, we're going to get to why I love the Creed films. But Rocky Balboa, Rocky 6, it was a movie that, it's a slow movie. Again, like Rocky 1, you have to watch its entirety. You can't just watch the snippets of it. And to me, it was a nice tie around, because you have the first Rocky, you have Rocky Balboa. It kind of tied the story together, and I really like that. And I think with Rocky 5, a lot of people kind of just pretend like there wasn't a fifth film, or some people don't even know there was a fifth film. That's how bad it was. But Rocky Balboa, it tied the story together, which I really like a lot. As we go on to number 3, Creed 2, and again, might be very biased, the newest film out, obviously, of these 8. But to me, Creed 2 was every Rocky fan's dream. Drago comes back, and this time it's not some hokey thing or Drago and Rocky fighting each other. It was Apollo Creed's son, who he never even knew, and Drago's son, who he taught in the streets of Ukraine, and after Russia denounced him, after all that, the Cold War ended, and what a great film it was. I'm not going to spoil it. What a great film it was. Again, that is one of the few films on this number 3, so after there's 2 ahead of it, that you can watch the entire film, and then you can watch snippets of it. And to me, that's when I know it's a great film. When I talk about other movies, when I watch the Star Wars Force Awakens, that's the snippet film. I can't watch the whole thing of that. I just, I'm just like, I've watched Episode 4 of New Hope. I wouldn't watch Force Awakens because it's the same thing. But anyway, I digress again. Creed 2, great film. Number 3 in my countdown, which gets us to number 2, Rocky 4. And some people will think I'm ridiculous. This is the montage movie, and he just did a director's cut of it, which I saw, and it was good, but I think I prefer the original still better. I'm not going to write the director's cut separately from this. To me, they're the same film, same footage. But Rocky 4, it's the ultimate, revenge type story of his best friend gets killed, and he has to go out and he has to get revenge on this guy, and he goes toe-to-toe in the country of Russia, fights in the dramatic tales, and who can hate the fact he climbs the mountain and he yells, "Drago!" Who doesn't love that? I mean, that's ripped off in so many shows. They kind of take that away from it. That's one of the film. That's one of the stones of the saga. Rocky 4, great film. You gotta love Dolph Lundgren in this film. And this set up Dolph Lundgren's career. Dolph Lundgren don't get other parts Expendables. He don't get other silly, ridiculous movies he's in, like Kindergarten Cop 2. You don't get these movies without Rocky 4. This made Dolph Lundgren. And this gets us to number 1 on the countdown, Rocky 3. Rocky 3 is the best story. This is what Rocky 1 and Rocky 2 did in two separate movies, jammed it into one. You throw Mr. T as the protagonist, and what a great film. What a great film it was. Who doesn't love Mr. T? This film with everything. You have Rocky, the champion, rising to the top, the best there is. Then we see him lose Mickey in this film. We see him lose the title. He's down and out. We have Apollo Creed come back in. He again rises. We have the build up to him rising to the top. He's the champion. The best movie ever. And this is where Creed 2. Why Creed 2 is so good. Creed 2 did kind of, like I said, on Force Awakens Star Wars. Creed 2 kind of borrowed the Rocky 3 template a little bit. Grabbed some things from Rocky 4. Grabbed some things from Rocky 1. And made a fantastic film. But there's nothing like the original. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. There's nothing like an original film like Rocky 3. No one's ever done a boxing film like this before. This is Rocky at his best. He's in his prime. He's fighting. We have Mr. T. We have Carl Weathers. We have Burgess Meredith. You have, obviously, Stallone. You have everything in this film. And you can't beat that. You can't beat any of these films. But Rocky 3, to me, has always been my favorite. Always will be. But that's today's episode. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit like if you like what you saw today. Subscribe if you want to see more further content of me talking. And we'll see you next time on the next episode.